Hello and welcome to another edition of Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast. I'm Captain Rick Riles. Hey, we're going to have a lot of fun this afternoon, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to start over in Paradise at Nosara Paradise Rentals. Talk to my buddy Craig Sutton. I've got to get my billfish fixed for the week. I know they're starting to stack up some pretty good numbers on the marlin over there. Then we're coming back to Florida, and we're going to work our way all the way from the northeast corner down the East Coast, through the Keys, up the West Coast, and out the Panhandle, getting fishing reports. And, we got a funny question for the guys to answer every week. This week, I'm interested to see if they could double the number of one species in their water. If Santa Claus could double it for them, what species would they take? For me in Northeast Florida, I'd take mahi. Our mahi numbers are way down. And it just doesn't, they're smaller and they're further between than they used to be. We used to have some great springtime mahi runs here. But there's other fish too. Golly, grouper sure aren't what they used to be up here. I know on the inshore sides, the guys would sure like to see the number of big trout doubled or maybe the number of flounder doubled. Either one. One thing for sure, we've made great strides with redfish, made monstrous strides with red snapper who are threatening to take over the ocean. So it ought to make for some lively conversation. The Florida Sportsman Action Spotter is brought to you this week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people and nature together. By Tournament Master Chum, it's the best chum on earth. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. By D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage, and by Young Boats. You want the finest in flats, bay, and offshore hybrids, you need to check out youngboats.com. Let's get it rolling with a conversation from Paradise. Captain Craig Sutton checking in. All right, let's get our trip started. We can't go anywhere until I make a quick trip over to Paradise and check in with my buddy Craig Sutton. That's all I want Santa Claus to bring me, is one more day trolling on the Wanderer off of Nosara, Costa Rica. Craig, are you there?
I'm there, Ricky. I'm right here waiting on you, buddy.
Can I have Captain William for one more day, Craig?
Absolutely. Anything you need, buddy. Anything you need.
Give me a report from there, brother.
It's real similar to last week, the week before that, the week before that. Lots of good-sized mahi, a few smaller yellowfin, no big ones, 30, 35 is about our biggest, and sailfish and marlin. It just, all the mahi are gappers. I don't think we've caught in the last 3-4 weeks, we've caught one less than 20 pounds.
Well, there was more around, but the marlin ate them.
Yeah, I know it. No, exactly.
It is. I laugh at that, but Craig, the first 8 or 10 years that we fished the Bahamas over in the Abacos, we didn't catch a bailer. And we literally, a buddy of mine and I were alone on a small rental boat one day, and we had, I guess, a triple of dolphin on, and so we got one rod sitting in the holder, and he was a smaller fish, 6 or 7 pounds, and I'll be darned if he didn't get eaten. So I think there's something to that. I really do. I ran into Santa Claus the other day, and he said, I don't have time. I meant to ask Craig what he wants for Christmas. I'll double any fish in his waters over at Nosara that he tells me he needs more of. What do you want?
Well, first choice would be marlin. Second one would be cabera. And third one would be roosters.
Really?
Mm-hmm. All right. But our marlin bite has gotten better and better, especially the last 2 years.
You told me you're on pace to have a record season for marlin over there. Is that right?
Well, we had a record November, and generally speaking, the marlin will slow up for us, in December and early January, the first week of January, and then they kind of make another surge. And I don't know that it's the reason we're catching marlin is because we're going a little further offshore now to find the bigger mahi and the yellowfin. That this time of year, generally the yellowfin will be a little further offshore, and it seems like the bigger mahi are mixed in with them. But I don't know if it's a result of that or just our general population.
I got you. All right.
But,
well, you keep it rolling over there, and I'll be back on the Wanderer just as fast as I can. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, Ricky.
We appreciate it, buddy. I'm gonna tell you what, folks, they've got it going on over there. All right, it's time to hit Florida. We're going up to the northeast corner and check in with Captain David Voorhees. It's time to hit northeast Florida and check in with our man up there, Captain David Voorhees. David, are you with us?
Hey, Captain, I'm here.
I appreciate it, brother. God, this water temperature up in northeast Florida is all over the place. Tell me what's going on now.
Well, it's been up and down. We've been on sort of a water temperature roller coaster. It got all the way down to, in the high 50s, 58, 59, and then came back up this week all the way up into the mid 60s, 65. And on some of the mud flats, we were even showing temperatures up to 66, 67 degrees, which is just insane. But it just goes to show you how much more of those mud flats will warm up.
Oh, yeah.
There's only about 2 feet of water on those things. The mud up here is really dark and black. And when you get these sunny days, these clear skies with sunny days, that water actually, it actually works like a solar water heater. It heats that water up, and it's just amazing to see that kind of water temperature change from, let's say the center of the St. Johns River or the center of the Intercoastal Waterway to, getting up onto some of these mud flats.
Are the reds biting up on the flats, David?
Well, it's been hit or miss this week. Talked to several captains, and everybody was sort of trying to feel each other out. Like, what did you do? No, what did you, And usually when I hear talk like that, it's usually like, we're not doing what we thought we'd do. I thought it was going to be a banner week this week, but we struggled. It was almost like we were back to tons of little rat reds, and every captain I talked to, they were like, oh, thank God for sea trout. The trout are just everywhere. But again, I haven't heard of anybody catching any really nice ones. It seems like a lot of them are small. But there's plenty of them where, what was it, 2 months ago, we were singing, where have the trout gone? Where have all the trout, And it's so funny how events like that play out, and you're sitting there wondering, God, what happened to our trout fishery? It's just been horrible. And now we're saying, wow, thank God we've got plenty of trout,
Yep. Every time we think we got them figured out, they change the rules, David.
Yep, they change it. But the red fishing's been good. I would say it really wasn't great. I saw a lot of fish. We saw fish. For some reason, our water got a little dirty on us this past week, and I can't quite figure it out. I wish I knew what caused it, but it seems like we were doing so good when the water was colder and gin clear, and then when it warmed up and got muddy, the bite wasn't as good as wasn't as good.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fishing. We still got things to figure out. So I'll be out there this week working on it, trying to figure them out, and I'm sure they're going to throw me another curveball.
Hey, David, I ran into Santa Claus at the mall this week, and he said, David Voorhees, he said, I meant to go see him. I haven't had a chance. Tell him I'm going to double one of the fish that he targets every year. What do you want?
Well, I'm going to sort of fudge on this one. It's not one I target. I can't say that I target this fish, but boy, I sure would love to target this fish, and that would be snook.
I already wrote the answer down for you.
Yeah, everybody up here knows we're right on that borderline of where, you go just south of here, you get in some really good snook fishing, and north of here, and they're non-existing. So we're in Northeast Florida, right here in Jacksonville. We're right on that line of demarcation, and we do catch some nice ones throughout the year. We've seen pictures of them on Facebook and other places, 32, 33, 34-inch snook. They're here. We do catch them. But, boy, I would like to see more of them.
Yep. I don't disagree with you a bit, buddy. Please tell me we can check with you next week when the water clears back up and the fish are biting again.
Well, I'll be here. I just hope the redfish show up this week.
I'm with you, too. I sure do, too. All right, David. Thank you so much, buddy.
All right, Ricky. We'll see you.
Captain David Voorhees from Northeast Florida. Now, we're going to swing on down to East Central and find out what's going on in the Mosquito Lagoon area from Captain Jim Ross. Jim, how are you?
Doing fantastic this week, Rick.
Good, good. Fish biting?
Fish have been chewing.
Really?
We got that week that we talked about. That Indian summer,
Yep.
that, 80s in the daytime, high 50s, low 60s at night. Beautiful, gorgeous, immaculate Chamber of Commerce weather. And the fish turned on right on cue.
Outstanding. What are you catching?
Well, I think the list is shorter as to what we're not catching than what we are catching.
How about that?
Offshore, let's start offshore. There's dolphin.
Okay.
There's king mackerel. The dolphin are in 180 to 220 feet of water. The guys are getting them mainly on very small skirts or naked ballyhoo. The dolphin aren't big dolphin, but they're dolphin, and that's better than no dolphin.
Yes, it is.
So that's a good thing. The guys that are fishing for grouper are getting a fairly decent amount, not any super big ones, but consistent catches of 20 to 32 pound fish. None of those 35 to 40 pound class
Jimmy,
fish, but
20 to 32 is still good fish, buddy.
is a solid fish. You got that right. King mackerel have been moving around on the 70 to 90 foot reefs, but the last 4 or 5 days, they moved off of Pelican up to 8A, and it is an absolute firefight. And a couple of those days, the cobia got mixed in with them. I was talking with one captain just yesterday. He had a limit of king mackerel and 11 keeper-sized cobia,
Wow.
which is unheard of in the Central East region because most of our fish seem to be 32 and a half inches long.
Yeah.
So obviously he didn't keep them all, but what a fun day. What a fantastic day. So the guys that are fishing both, the mid reaches and the offshore stuff, doing really good. We've had rays running around inshore. We've had free swimmers running around inshore as far as the cobia goes. So not just following the rays. We've had triple tail on floating debris. We've had 2 giant schools of spinner sharks, one down off of Sebastian in about 50 to 60 feet of water, and one off of Canaveral in about 50, 60 feet of water. And these are massive, massive schools that are half a mile to a mile long in some cases. And topwater plugs, lip diving plugs, live baits, dead baits, whatever you wanted to throw at them, you could catch sharks, you could catch those spinner sharks on. So once again, we had a bunch of bass guys out this week and did a multiple boat trip on Tuesday and Wednesday for those guys that are on Major League Fishing. Some of those guys came out with us and did some of that, and they were ruined. They said, we're never going to be able to throw a hula popper again.
Yep, I
So-
understand that.
So good stuff, good stuff. Whenever you got 100-pound spinner sharks blasting topwater plugs, that's always an exciting time.
Jim,
The other thing,
Jim, when I was running tarpon charters, I guess that was for 11 years back in the 80s, and it just, everybody wanted to catch a tarpon, okay? And everybody talked about if you hook 10 and you get one, you did great, and they're the hardest fish. I could get a much better average of getting the fish to the boat on tarpon than ever could those daggum 100-pound spinner sharks.
You were right about that, Rick. In my opinion, they are one of the most. But spinner sharks and ladyfish are the two most underrated fish that we chase.
Yep. We used
They
to.
do not get the credit they deserve.
Oh no, you're absolutely right. All right, we better take it inshore. We're running short on time. How are you doing in there?
Well, let's swing in a little closer to the beach because the triple tail bite has been solid on anything floating, whether it be a buoy, any kind of debris, weeds, anything. Lots and lots of triple tail right now. A lot of those fish are just undersized, but some of those fish are running 15 pounds or so. Snook bite turned back on this week. Redfish bite turned on this week along the near shore. Now, going inside the lagoon systems, trout bite has been solid. It's been solid for 3 or 4 weeks now. We've been giving you guys good, solid trout reports. Of course, trout's out of season, so they're biting. That's just the way it happens. It's like deer season. You want to go get a deer? Go. You see them in June, July, and August, but come September, they're gone. Redfish are the exact opposite. The redfish in the lagoon systems have been horrible lately, and I mean horrible. With the exception of cut baits just sitting on the bottom, anything that moves, they're running from it. And that includes live shrimp. My son, and I'm going to, this is not a thing that you want to tell somebody, but this is how bad it was. My son was fishing skeet reefs on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
No fish.
Mm-hmm.
Skeet reefs cast at redfish after redfish after redfish with artificials, live baits. He didn't want to go to the cut bait, didn't want to go to the cut dead baits. He wanted to catch it on an active type of a scenario, active fishing scenario. Skeet casted over 20 redfish that morning and didn't get a single fish to take on live or a live shrimp or artificial.
I'm gonna
and
guess.
So that's how bad the redfish bite is right now.
I'm gonna guess that Skeet probably put most of those casts just in the right place too.
I would imagine. I wasn't on the boat, but I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
When you have, I think, the third all-time money-winning bass angler on the boat,
he can probably cast okay to a redfish.
That guy might have a clue which end of the rod he's supposed to hold on to. You know what I'm saying? So Justin was totally frustrated, but Skeet was like, he didn't want to go catch trout. He's like, I caught trout the day before. He goes, I want a redfish. And so they focused on redfish, and that's how bad our redfish bite is. When you have an angler of that quality that gets skunked because every single fish that he put a bait or a lure in front of refused it, that's the state of our red fishing this week. So it's going to change. We all know it's going to change.
Yep.
But what you want to do is don't go red fishing until you get some reports from somebody saying they are biting.
You're absolutely right. Hey Jim, Santa Claus said he will double one of the species in your fishery. What do you want?
He'll double the no.
Yep.
Oh.
All right. I ran into him the other day just by chance, and he said, I haven't had time to look at Jim Ross's Christmas list. Tell him I'll double one fish in his fishery. What does he want doubled?
It's not something I fish for a lot, but I would definitely like to see the dolphin numbers be increased. The longliners are just crushing.
I don't know what's crushing them, Jim. I'm not that smart, but I do know the numbers are terrible. Make sure that you sign Florida Sportsman Save the Mahi petition, and make
signed it and forwarded it to a bunch of people.
Darn right. Yeah. Thank you, Jimmy. We appreciate it so much.
Take care.
Captain Jim Ross from East Central. Our thanks to Jim Ross for a great East Central report. Now, we're going to hop down to Miami and check in with Alan Sherman, but before we do, let's get a word from D.O.A. Hey, it's finally cooled off. How long have we waited for this fall to get here? The magic of the mullet run is going on, particularly in Southeast Florida. Now, here's what you need to cash in on the tarpon, the snook, the reds, the trout, and the flounder that are feasting on these poor fingerlings. Of course, it's the perfect mullet imitation. Well, for my money, you can skip all the high-dollar made-in-China mullet imitators. For me and the podcasters on this show, the perfect mullet imitation is made right here in Stuart, Florida. It's the D.O.A. Bait Buster. Mark Nichols, the owner and manufacturer of the D.O.A. Bait Buster, spent years designing different ones to swim shallow, medium, or deep. What makes Bait Buster so special? I think it's that tail. If your Bait Buster is moving, even if it's just sitting in the current, if it's moving, his tail is flapping, and no predator can stand that tail swimming in his face. The D.O.A. Bait Buster is the perfect mullet imitation. Time to head down to Miami and check in with Captain Alan Sherman. Alan, how are you?
Rick, I'm doing just fine. How are you?
Good. How's your fishing been this week?
I'd say it's a little slower than it has been. We're back into the summer again. Temperatures are up in the 80s.
Yeah.
And, it definitely has warmed up, and it has, tempered off the fishing a little bit, but there's still plenty to catch. It doesn't matter whether you're inshore or offshore. There's plenty of fish around. You want to start with the inshore stuff?
Start where you want to, Cap.
All right. So in North Bay, we've got some bait fish schools. They were pretty much tightly packed, but we have some jacks and bluefish, some mackerel and ladyfish, and they're chasing those bait fish schools all over the northern part of the bay, from 125th Street Broad Causeway south to 79th Street. And because they're chasing them, they've broken the schools up. So the birds are everywhere. It's like you'll see them dip here, you'll see them dip there. So you got to chase them. But there's plenty of action, and those fish are going for live baits, of course, and also they're eating spoons and hard plastics, soft plastics as well. And so there's plenty of action in the bay. A few sea trout, not too many. The snook fishing has been good. especially in the inlets. There's been snook in the inlets, and there's been tarpon in the inlets, the ocean inlets. So that fishery has been worthwhile. Along the beaches, we've got some mackerel and bluefish, and of course the Jackson blue runners. The normal stuff you would expect this time of the year, but not in big numbers. The water's been warm, but we've got an easterly breeze right now, so that's starting to kick up the sand in the water. So it's not crystal clear like it was before, and that makes it a lot easier to catch these fish. Moving a little further offshore on the outer reef, the east wind has pushed some dolphin closer to shore. So the guys fishing kites with live baits, they're catching dolphin, sailfish, wahoo, blackfin tuna, and kingfish. They're not getting lots of them, but they're getting enough action to make a day out of it. We have some pretty good reef fishing. The yellowtail snapper bite's been just awesome. The reefs in 60 to 80 feet of water, guys are anchoring day and night and chumming hard. And then fishing, the guys that do the best will chum for 30 minutes before they start fishing. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is they feel, and I think it's true, it gets those fish to where they're not spooked or scared. In the first 30 minutes, they're coming in small amounts. And, if one gets picked off or two gets picked off, they get wise quick. But when you let them get going, they get into a frenzy. And sometimes it's 30 minutes, other times it's an hour. But that can definitely get you a 10 yellowtail snapper limit a lot quicker by waiting that extra time for those fish to get hungry. And then there's been some mutton snappers on the wrecks. There's some black groupers and gag groupers being caught. Those wrecks anywhere from 100 to, I'd say, 240, 260. And then there's been a really good swordfish bite going on. Not real big fish, 100 to 150, maybe even some 200 pounders. But the guys are getting them in the daytime with rigged bonita bellies,
right,
and rigged squid, and they're fishing 1,600 to 2,000 feet of water and on the bottom.
That's really deep, Alan, and that's a fantastic tip on chumming the yellowtails. I never thought of that, but I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put that into play the next time I'm mangrove snapper fishing. We get in June and July up here, we get a real good mangrove snapper spawn, the big fish, and I have never thought about chumming and letting them really get in a frenzy before you drop a bait into them. They will not notice that one fish being caught nearly as much. That's a great tip. Thank you, brother. We appreciate it so much. Thank you, Alan. We'll talk with you next week.
Look forward to it.
Captain Alan Sherman.
You know what Yamaha Outboards love? The genuine formula and consistency of Yamalu marine engine oils. Outboards are subjected to punishing conditions like high loads, salt, and humidity, a mix that automotive oils can't handle. Yamalu full synthetic and marine performance formulas are certified to protect against friction and corrosion for reliable performance every time. Find Yamalu marine oils at your nearest Yamaha Outboard dealer. Locate them at yamahaoutboards.com/dealers. Yamaha, reliability starts here.
Hey, Raj, being consistent is a mark of a quality product. If you've been Florida's #1 chum for over 10 years, there's got to be a reason.
For 10 years, Tournament Master Chum has lived up to his name. That's why more tournament pros insist on Tournament Master than any other chum. It's the only chum with menhaden milk mixed right in. That means it gets the scent out faster and deeper than any other brand of chum. It comes in a grind size for every species from kingfish to catching bait. Your fishing time is way too precious to you second-rate chum. Bring the action to you by insisting on Tournament Master Chum. It's worth every penny.
When you're ready for the finest in custom-made flat spay or inshore-offshore hybrids, you are ready to meet the Young family in Inglis, Florida. For over 21 years, the Young family has built custom boats one at a time for every type of fishing. Nothing can sneak up on a flat quite like the Gulf Shore flats boats, and I've never fished a better hybrid than the Young 24s and 27s. Rob Young is a naval architect who takes tremendous pride in each and every build for each and every customer that wants their boat custom built exactly the way they want it. Is it time for you to move up? Are you ready to own the finest boat built? Then you need to visit the Young Boat facility in Inglis, Florida, or check them out online at youngboats.com. Now we're going to head on down into the Florida Keys and check in with one Brandon Storin. Captain Bean, how we doing?
I'm great, Rick. How you been?
I'm doing very, very well, son. How's your fishing been this week?
It's been great. It's been having some days on the Gulf, catching some real nice mangrove snappers and some Spanish mackerel. Also been a lot of like juvenile red grouper and gag grouper mixed in with them, which is kind of cool on light tackle. Something different to look at.
Hold on a minute. You're catching juvenile reds inshore, juvenile red grouper?
Yep, and 8 feet of water.
That's funny. Up here, we do get the juvenile gags inshore sometimes, but never juvenile reds. What else is going on?
Yeah. In the backcountry, the water warmed up a lot. Almost got up to like 75 degrees, which is amazing because we had that warm spell of weather. And there was just a flash of a really good tarpon bite for that week. But the reds kind of moved away. Snook were still good. So that's for the backcountry. Offshore, we're seeing more sailfish come through. Some really big mutton snappers. Of course, some kings and some tunas on the edge of the reef as well. The sword fishermen have been getting a lot of swordfish lately. I think Nick caught 5 swords yesterday and 2 pomfrets. And I've heard of a lot of our boats catching 3 or 4 or 5 swordfish a day. A lot of smaller swordfish, but, just a lot of action, dropping it down and hooking up, and it's really cool.
Hey, Bean, let me ask you something. Have you ever eaten a pomfret?
I've never ate a pomfret. We always try to give them to the customers.
I kind of wonder how they are. I've never heard talk to anybody.
I heard they're really good.
Yeah?
Yeah, I asked the customers. It says really good, white and flaky. I think it's just, I think it's almost kind of like some of those deep water fish that you don't want to eat too much of. That they could maybe have higher mercury. But that's just me, like, guessing. I have no facts behind that. But, I mean, when you fillet it, it's beautiful white flaky meat.
Yeah, almost all those deep fish like that, though. God, I love the way they taste. I think that increased water pressure on them, they're under so much pressure down there, and it makes that meat so compact and tight. You talk about snowy groupers, you can talk about rosies, you can talk about anything deep water. It seems to me like it's almost always good to eat.
I think it's also due to that cold water down there. I mean, when you bring that fish up and you touch it, it's steel cold. But yeah, those black belly rose fish are probably the best fish to eat in the ocean.
Oh, I don't disagree with that a bit, Bean. I sure don't. Well, that sounds good. It sounds to me like it may be a little better offshore than it has been inshore, but I'm sure your redfish will crank back up. Please tell me we can check in with you next week.
Absolutely, always.
Thank you, Bean. Our thanks to Bean Storin, where he said the sword fishing in Alamorada is unbelievable. Hey, how about this, Steve? He says that Nick is catching 5 swordfish a day.
Wow, that's nuts.
That's crazy, isn't it? Yesterday he had 5 swordfish and 2 pomfrets.
Jeez.
I bet you haven't caught a good pomfret out of your flat skiff in a long time.
Yeah, I sure haven't. Certainly haven't caught swordfish either.
Let's try never. We'll try that.
Okay. Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Tell me how your fish has been, Cap.
Hey, it's darn good. It's probably my favorite, some of my favorite times of year, this fall pattern. We're finally starting to get into, full fall swing, pre-winter. Weather's been warm, and that's certainly helping out all the species, kind of stay active, in particular the snook. Snook fishing is probably as good as I've seen it, late in the year, kind of pre-winter pattern, but our water temps are still up in those, 70-degree ranges, even mid-70s in the backcountry. So you're going to find active snook, and we've been spooking a lot of tarpon, and I'm not talking little guys. I'm talking, laid-up tarpon just kind of sunning themselves. And, if you got some stealthy approach, you could certainly tangle with those. And the redfish are certainly cooperating. Seeing a lot of decent fish still left over from that run in the fall that we usually have. We're not seeing, the giants, if you will, but those are kind of tapered off, and those breeder fish have kind of moved on. But we're definitely seeing numbers. It's not out of the question, to go out and catch, a dozen to 2 dozen snook, and then pepper in, 6 to 12 redfish, and then pretty much all the trout you want. And,
That's sweet.
So, I mean, you really can get the trifecta, and backcountry slam, and then you throw in that tarpon, and you're going to get the grand slam. So it's there for you. Good time to get the backcountry grand slam in our area.
That's some easy fishing. I mean, that doesn't get much easier than all those fish going off at once. Any sign of cobia and triple tail yet?
Yeah, no, that's the other part of it is kind of flipping the coin in the morning. We've had light winds, so you're really torn and what to do day to day, because the backcountry's fishing good and our nearshore waters are good. Triple tail pretty much everywhere. It's just a matter of size. And if you've never done this before or would like to introduce somebody to it, now's the time. There's tons of undersized fish, 15 to 17 inches out there. There's some borderline fish you're going to have to measure, whether determining if they're keepers, and that's 18 inches for if people aren't in the know. And then you're just going to run upon a doormat, a 15-pounder, and it's those fish are definitely a little bit out farther. I've been kind of concentrating some stuff, letting kind of the low-hanging fruit, close to shore kind of get hammered a little bit. And a lot of those fish are small, but if you can get out to 35, 40, 45 feet of water, those are kind of the fish that aren't getting the pressure. And it's not uncommon to see multiple fish on a buoy right now, which is very cool. And then, you're right around all of our nearshore wrecks and reefs. And, for the last couple of weeks, the permit and the cobia fishing has just been fantastic. I mean, absolutely fantastic. And the permit fishing in particular, we're not getting those big fish we generally see, in May or June. But, my gosh, you're talking, could be anywhere from, 7 to 10 hookups on permit, and throw in 3, 4, maybe even 5, 6 cobias, and then there's tons of bottom fishing to be had with snappers and smaller groupers. They're not getting in a lot of keepers by any means, but it's fun.
Steve,
are we fun time to be out there.
Steve, are we making progress with cobia? And are we
well, go ahead.
Are we spinning our wheels, or the limits helping, and they actually seem to be coming back?
I'm seeing this is probably the best year I've seen in a while. So this year is kind of a testament to things. I would like to think that we're getting the numbers back, at least in my region. I've just never seen the numbers like I have, so I'd like to think that. And I'm seeing a lot of undersized fish too. So when I'm talking about a lot of these fish, they're borderline fish, but as far as size length, but there's been some brutes off in our area as well, outside Naples and, southwest of Naples, offshore. You're traveling quite a bit, but I mean, you're talking, 50 pounds, class cobia are being caught now in our area. On near shore, we're getting, obviously those lower 30-inch, range, fish, but if anybody's ever caught a 32-inch or 34-inch cobia, they know that fish can, that's a fun fight.
They're fun
lighter
fish.
Tackle.
And I tell you what, I'd much rather eat a 34 than I would a 50-pounder too. So.
Oh, in a heartbeat. Yeah, I don't. I've seen some of those fish cleaned, over the years, and a recent one actually that was pushing, like 45 pounds, and that meat just doesn't look nearly as good. And that's kind of a truth that we all know with a lot of fish. Those fish right around the slot just tend to be the better eating fish. So keep that. Sometimes it's nice to, I don't know if that's sure if those fish are going to survive if you release them or not when you're that far offshore, but nonetheless, I'd rather keep the small ones, to your point.
Oh, I think cobia will. I don't think it's an issue with cobia. They spend a lot of their time on top of the water anyway. And
good point.
I think they do fine released. It's hard, and I can understand it. It's hard to let go of that 50 especially if that's the first one you got. But if you've got your choice between a 50 and an 18, mark my word, take the 18. Steve,
as a captain, I hope I got the 18 in the box already when the 50 comes.
I'm with you, so I can make them let them go. You're exactly right.
So,
Steve, I appreciate the heck out of it. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Oh, absolutely. Can't wait.
Our thanks to Steve Dahl for a very good fishing report. He says the fishing in the 10,000 Islands couldn't get any easier. How about it, Greg Stamper? You go along with that in Southwest Florida?
For the most part, yes. There are a few targets that were a little tougher this week based on tides that Mother Nature gave us. But like when it comes to trout fishing, the guys that are near shore with the cobia and the permit, even some triple tail, or the offshore guys, they've done very well as well. I did have 1 or 2 days this week where the redfish bite was a little bit slower than what I would have expected, but we did catch a lot of really nice sea trout this week, which is another great thing to see again. And Rick, just yesterday, got me a 7-pound pompano to the boat, so you know that's a trophy.
Come on now, you sure that wasn't a permit?
Oh, very, very much so. It's really kind of funny because some of the guys in my marina, they show off when they have a big fish. They hang it off the front of their boat, the carcass.
Oh, yeah.
So I hang my pompano off the front of the boat, and people are like, oh, that's for real.
How about that? That is a monster pompano, my boy. Have you been seeing a lot of pompano?
Well, I haven't really been focused on catching pompano. My clients just really haven't wanted to do that this week. But where I'm picking these fish up, Rick, for everybody that wants to know, is when I'm trout fishing. So I'm in 2 to 4 feet of water, popping those corks, catching these nice trout that are anywhere from 16 inches up to about 23, 24 inches. And every once in a while, they just stumble on by us. Every fish I've caught while I've been trout fishing this last week and a half have all been giant fish. They've all been 4, 5, 6 pounds.
Ooh.
There are no small ones mixed in there.
That is
kind
good
of the funny
fish.
thing, though, Rick, is we're still catching tons and tons of bluefish in the back as well as those trout.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe that. But I'm almost wondering, Greg, are those bluefish resident? Are they staying
They are
there
now.
Yeah, because
Absolutely.
they I don't think they ever went north, did they?
No, sir. Those fish have been here all summer long. It's kind of odd because in years past, we never really caught them until it got cool out, and then they'd be around our beaches and our passes and stuff. They just set up shop here. We got plenty of bait all year long. They're like, we ain't going nowhere.
I don't blame them. All in favor of going back to New England, say aye. And the whole room was quiet.
Funny.
Greg, I appreciate it so much, and that's a great report. Are you hearing much from offshore, the grouper biting?
So a couple guys have been out there offshore. It's been mainly the mangrove snapper bite that they've been focused on. They are picking up some kingfish. If they, a word of advice is if you are out there and you are bottom fishing, always have a flat line out with just any bait that you have that you're allowed to use out there. Just leave it out there on that flat line. You'll pick up a kingfish right now. But they've also been catching some really nice porgies, which is a good sign of what's going to happen in the future. Not a lot of people coming in with grouper this week.
Gotcha. Greg, great report. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Absolutely. Tight lines, Rick. Look forward to it.
You too. Captain Greg Stamper. Now we're going to move up to West Central, where it's been a whole lot tougher this year for one Captain Ray Markham. Raymond, are you with us?
Yes, sir, I am.
Tell me things are getting better.
Well, things are getting better.
There you go.
How's that?
That's what I wanted to hear. Tell me how they're getting better. What's getting better?
Well, as long as you're targeting the right species, things are getting better. We've had an influx of pompano over the last week or so, and it seems like areas around some of the passes, anywhere from Fort DeSoto, Longboat Key, and all the way up to Clearwater. Guys have been catching some nice pompano, some big ones too. Most of them are catching them on Doc's goofy jigs, but an assortment of different kinds of lures are working real well. The D.O.A. Terrorize is one that seems to be an outstanding kind of a bait for them. And guys that are just basically chucking a shrimp on the bottom, they're even catching them. The guys that are fishing near shore and offshore waters are seeing some real good action with triple tail still. Hogfish have been on a definite upswing for the guys offshore. I say offshore, they're starting at about 30 feet and working out to about 60. Seems to be kind of the prime locations. The guys are fishing the half day kind of boats early in the morning out to about midday and coming back in, and they're doing pretty well with hogfish. So that's all been good. Gag grouper have slowed a little bit for some reason. The guys that are working the inside of Tampa Bay, believe it or not, are probably doing as well as some of the guys that are working up to about 80 feet of water for gags. Yes.
I'll be darned. Now, Ray, I got to ask you, how are they fishing them inside Tampa Bay? Are they trolling lip divers for them, or what are they doing?
No, actually, they're trolling big, soft-bodied jigs, curly tails. Bubba's jigs that is no longer a company, but I mean, you'll find big curly tail jigs rigged on about a 4 to 6 ounce jig head, and that's primarily what they're using. And it's a real science to it. But the guys that are doing it having best success around the turns of the tide when the water is not running so fast.
Right.
We got a pretty good current. It goes through Tampa Bay when tide starts moving. So they're trying to do it when the tides are slower. And speaking of slower, the slower tides are also producing pretty good action with both black drum and sheep's head. So inshore guys got something to do there. They're finding some redfish on the east side of Tampa Bay. Pretty good action with that. A few guys are doing really well that are concentrating on snook, even though they're closed. And so we've got a smattering of everything going on. If you want to get out and look around and find the spots that are full of them, you're going to catch them.
That sounds a lot better than it has been for you, Ray. What are they catching redfish on?
Wow. Catching redfish on cow jigs with shad tails, live shrimp, D.O.A. shrimp, and mirrodines, mirrolure mirrodines.
Yep.
So,
that's a hard lure to beat. Ray, we appreciate it.
Bait.
That sounds a lot more promising than it has been for you. I'm thrilled to hear all that news, and we'll talk with you next week if that's okay.
I certainly hope so.
All right, Kevin. Our thanks to Ray Markham, where finally things are getting better. Looks like that red tide, they're recovering from it. It's amazing how the environment heals itself after an event like that. But now we're going to check into a place where fishing's never bad, the Big Bend, and Captain William Toney. William, how are you?
I'm doing good, Rick. I'm right here in downtown Homosassa, and I tell you what, with this kind of weather, you just cannot go wrong.
You're watching the traffic, aren't you? It must be intense.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to yell at this guy in a golf cart. He's going more than 5 miles an hour. So slow down, dude.
I got you. Don't go so fast. Tell me about fishing in the Big Bend, William.
All right, let's start offshore. Right now, we're getting down to the timeline where gag grouper is about to close here at the end of the month. But with the weather like this coming up here, we got full moon right now. It's about half. Good incoming tides this whole week through the weekend. Looks like the winds are laying down real nice. Started at 18 to about 25 foot depth, and they're doing really good catching the gags on live pin fish or frozen scaled sardines or thread fins down on the bottom. Now, if you're a little bit shallower, if you start between 12 to that 18-foot mark, they're still hitting those trolling plugs or casting plugs. So, it's getting down to the nitty-gritty, and as long as this weather holds out, I think, it's very easy to go out there and get a limit. Plus, there's been some nice mangrove snappers coming in from that area, too, using live shrimp on the jig head.
Gotcha. Okay. What's going on inshore?
All right, inshore, it's just like if you were fishing in September, if you can remember what you're doing, do the same thing. It's just the fish are still on that outside edge. Anywhere you can see that rock grass and kelp all around the river mouths. If you're fishing, here in Citrus County, Fish Creek, St. Martin's River, get up north there, Crystal River, the Spoil Banks, go a little further north up there towards Cedar Key, around the river mouths in there, and then you get up toward, Steenahatchee in that area. All the areas that you would normally fish, if you fish those, think about September, and that's where you're going to find the trout. Now, the redfish have been just around the outside keys. Again, you see some mullet, that is a spot to fish. Been getting my redfish on live shrimp. Now, don't let go of that gold spoon yet, because it's still working. And there's actually a little bit of floating grass, which is strange for this time of year. So you kind of have to watch for that. And it just seems that everything's a little bit later. We started off colder, but right now it's just like late September, October. So it's perfect.
Yeah, it is, William, and I think it's really helped our fishing. I think it's hurt our hunting, don't you? Would you like to see a cold snap?
You know what? That gets those bucks moving. I've been blessed that my job is to fish and my hobby is to hunt. So, either way, I could be out fishing and be like, gosh, I wish I was hunting. And then the weather like this, you're sitting in the stand with the thermostat going and you're sweating. It's like, man, I should be out there making some money.
I got you 100%. William, we appreciate it so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Yep, I'll be right here in downtown Homestead, and hopefully I can tell you about that buck I got, and and we made some fried backstrap rice and gravy, and I'll tell you all about it.
No, you ain't gonna tell me about it. I'm gonna drive over there and we're gonna share it. You got it?
You got it, bud. I got a hot plate ready for you.
All right, brother. Thank you. Our thanks to William Toney for bringing us all the Home Assassin news. He said the fish are acting like it's September, and I can understand that because that's what the temperatures are doing. Let's check in with one Kevin Lanier, see what he's got to tell us from Northwest Florida. Are you with me, Kevin?
Hey, Captain Rick, we're with you today.
What's going on in Northwest Florida?
Well, the grouper bite's still hot, and the weather's cooperating for the most part, so we're able to get out and get some really nice fish again this week.
Excellent. Okay, excellent. What are you catching, gags mostly?
Yeah, gags. We're catching gags and throwing back red snapper, so it seems to be the same song, different verse every day.
Yep. Friend of mine went sea bass fishing the other day. Cap, it's time for us to have some sea bass. We had quite a temperature dip there for a little while, and he did. He caught 2, and he threw back 81 red snapper. They came home absolutely physically whipped with 2 sea bass. I mean,
I bet.
It's just crazy. It's crazy, Kevin. It's nuts.
It is.
But you've been getting your limited gags. Good fish?
Yeah, good fish. Good quality fish. No giants, but definitely good keeper sizes and, good fights all the way around.
Good deal. Good. Happy for you. You hearing anything from inshore?
I got an in-store story for you. One of my new deckhand was out fishing in the basin at Port St. Joe Marina where it used to be.
Right.
Sent me a picture and said, "You're not going to believe this." And lo and behold, they landed a permit.
A permit
up here in St. Joe. Yeah.
I'll be darned. How big was he?
Oh, I would say about 16, 17 inches long. Not huge, but for up here, that's like. That's almost unheard of. So
that's pretty crazy.
It's great.
Oh, that's crazy. Well, they can go anywhere they want. They got tails. It's you just don't know. And that's what I love so much about being a saltwater fisherman. And when you throw that rubber worm in lake, whatever you want to call it, and something picks it up, there's about a 95% chance you know what it is, right?
Yeah, that's true.
But, buddy, you and I have no idea what's about to bite our line.
Oh, absolutely. Without question. I mean, this summer we got a couple, one of my buddy charter captains just to the west got a couple of muttons, and that just doesn't happen up here.
Uh-huh. Yep. It certainly seems like tropical type fish are moving further north every year. Well, that's an outstanding report. I hope your grouper hold up for you. You've just got till the end of this month, right?
Yep. I need the grouper to hold up for me for about 2 more weeks, and then we'll let them rest for about 6 months.
Call it a year. I'm with you, Cap. You got any days open between now and the end of the year?
Oh, yeah. We've got some days open between Christmas and New Year's. So, yeah, people want to get into that last little bit of grouper bite. It's worth it. It's definitely worth the trip to do.
Yep, no doubt about it. They should contact KC's Sport Fishing Adventures, right?
Absolutely. KC Sport Fishing. We're on Facebook, Instagram, everything. KCSportFishing.com will get us too.
Perfect. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Captain Rick. We'll talk to you next week.
Talk to you next week, buddy. Our thanks to Captain Kevin Lanier, who says a grouper are biting in Northwest Florida. They're doing well there. Let's go on out the Panhandle. We can't leave Florida without talking to Captain Tyler Massey. Tyler, how are you?
We're doing good, Rick. How are you guys?
I'm doing outstanding, buddy. Tell me how your fishing is.
So fishing's been pretty good. This time of year we definitely focus more on inshore fishing than going offshore. It's just it seems like a more productive, easier thing to do this time of year. So inshore we've been catching a little bit of variety. We've been catching some redfish, and that's going to be the same, throughout the winter time. Mostly fishing, bridge structures, that kind of stuff. Using live shrimp or cut bait or any kind of little live bait that we can find. Any of that stuff works well for the wintertime redfish. So that's an easy target fish this time of year.
I got you. Now, what are most of the guys using? How are they finding redfish?
So we fish Carolina rigs mainly. And like I said, any bridge structure in our bait system can hold some redfish this time of year. Typically fish the upcurrent side of the bridge. And we put whatever kind of bait we have, whether it's a live shrimp works really well, a bull minnow, mud minnow, a croaker, a mullet, or a cut menhaden, like a half a menhaden works really well. And these redfish range from upper slot size to over slot size. So just a variety and a few keepers mixed in, but a lot of them are oversized fish.
Tyler, let me ask you a question. Does it work to catch menhaden in the summer, freeze them, and then use them this time of year? Because your menhaden are gone now, aren't they?
Yeah, it definitely does. So we catch the menhaden are around where they're easiest to catch in the fall. So we catch them, October, November. They get in big giant schools in the bayous before they head out in the Gulf.
Uh-huh.
And you can go one day and spend an hour catching them and have enough for the whole year. But yeah, definitely vacuum sealing these menhaden. We use them for snapper fishing. They work great for chum and chunks. We're catching mangrove snappers.
Right.
And they also work really well for redfish and stuff in the bay too. So menhaden are great bait, and we do have a lot of them in our area in the fall, and it's definitely great to stock up on those guys when they're around.
That's a great tip, Tyler. We appreciate it. I know you'll be ready when it's time to get back offshore again, but sounds like you've got some excellent red fishing in the meantime. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
We'll be here, Rick. We'll see you guys.
You got it. Captain Tyler Massey from the Panhandle area. Hey, before we get out of here, we need to hear a word from Shimano. There's one thing that just about all our podcasters have in common. We all rely on Shimano gear when a big day is on the line. Whether it's Jim Ross chasing a tarpon with his Saragossa spinner, Alan Sherman catching muttons on his bait runners, Shimano gear is everywhere in Florida. You see, Shimano builds a reel for every fish that swims in Florida, and it seems like every year they come out with new models with names that take me 6 months to learn how to pronounce. But you know what? There's also a couple models that have stood the test of time, and they stand at the top of the brand even today. If I'm fishing an inshore spinner, be it fresh or salt, you can count on the fact I'm throwing a Shimano Stratic. That's just because it's been around the block so many times and it just never fails me. And if there's a blue water boat looking for a sea monster, I can almost promise you there's Shimano Tiagras pulling the big fish baits. Why do the best blue water guys count on Tiagras year after year? For the same reason I always throw a Stratic when I need to hook a redfish for my granddaughter. Because when the best day is on the line, it's time to turn to the time-tested Tiagra and Stratic from Shimano. Hey, it's been fun this evening. Gosh, it's been a quick trip around the state, and it's been really awfully well if you consider we're staring Christmas in the face. The year's almost over. Craig Sutton got us rolling with a great report from Nosara. He said they're ahead of scale on marlin, and if Santa Claus is going to bring him anything next year, he wants more marlin. David Voorhees up in the Northeast, they're starting to see more and more snook every year. Now, he said his redfish bite has been off this week due to dirty water. But if Santa Claus is going to bring him something, he wants more snook next year. We'll see. I'll bet he gets it because it seems to continue to get warmer all the time. Jim Ross loves what they got going on down in East Central right now. The cobia fishing is phenomenal. That's great news. For him next year, he wants more dolphin. That's for me, too. Bring us more big mahi. I'll be happy with it. Alan Sherman's having a good run right now. He said that the offshore bites, there's been enough mahi and sailfish, not a ton, but enough to keep the charter boats happy. And back inshore, the mutton snapper had been biting really well. He wants to double his speckled trout next year. That's the species he picked out that he would like a lot more of. Down in the Keys, Captain Bean reported excellent mangrove snapper and Spanish mackerel fish, and that's almost a constant down there this time of year. You get anywhere in South Florida, you can usually find all the Spanish you want, but the reds have kind of shut off for him. Sailfish have been okay. They're getting better every day as we get deeper into the year, and there are more sailfish in the Keys this time of year than most times. Now, over in 10,000 Islands, Captain Steve said it is some kind of easy fishing. You can limit on reds, you can limit on trout, you can limit on snook, and there's enough tarpon around if you want to pull on a really big fish. Greg Stamper's fired up about cobia. He said that the cobia are doing very well down there. The triple tail, the permit are all biting well in Southwest Florida. This is the time of year to head south if you want to catch a lot of fish. Ray Markham had a much better report this week. Said the pompano are there. They're catching them on Doc's Goofy Jigs, and they're catching them on cut live shrimp. That's taking live shrimp, actually cutting it, threading it on, particularly with the head section peeled off. The pompanos seem to pounce on that pretty quickly. William Toney said that the fish are acting just like it's September up in the Big Bend area. Said that the trout are hanging around the seagrass, and if you can find mullet, the redfish are going to be there. Captain Kevin Lanier's in the middle of a super grouper season. Their gag grouper fishing in the Gulf is much better than it is on the East Coast. I don't know about you. I'm jealous. Tyler Massey's doing everything inshore. They're catching plenty of reds on cut menhaden. It's been fun traveling in the state this week, and it's all been brought to you, just like every Florida Sportsman Action Spotter podcast is, by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people and nature back together. By Tournament Master Chum, oh, it's the best chum on earth, I promise you. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream billfish destination. By D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage, and by Young Boats. You want the finest in flat spay and offshore hybrids? You need to check out youngboats.com. Until next week, for Florida Sportsman Magazine, I'm Captain Rick Riles, and we'll see you on the reef.